What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Beats by Ash coming at you with another banger video. Today we are going to be playing some MTG Spellslingers, and I'm going to be showing you my Domri deck list, and I'm going to be taking you through a couple games, just kind of teaching you how to play the deck. So we're going to get right into it. First off, we play one two-headed Hellhound. You could play two of this. I feel like this card is very strong with all of the fight cards. It plays very well into your grudge match. And then I play two Opening Salvo. I think for 1 mana dealing 3 damage, this card is just quite economical for the amount of impact it has on the board. I play two Pouncing Lemur. I think this is completely mandatory. When you open with the additional mana gem, I think playing two of these on turn 1 sometimes can feel very polarizing to the other player. Then we play two Raging Goblin, two Sword Cannoneer, two Goblin Shortcutter, and we also play two Goblin Field Rusher. So we're playing the full Goblin package. I think that these cards are very strong in any aggro deck, and they all create bodies on the board at a low cost, which is inevitably going to get us to our board generation, which is what the deck is aimed at doing. So I think all of the Goblin cards are very necessary, and then the best card in the deck, Grudge Match, is possibly the best card to play on turn 2. It has insane synergy with your Hellhound, insane synergy with your Lemur, and then Forest Patrol, one of the highest tempo cards to play on turn 2. Then two Trumpet Blast. This card is a game ender. It gives you additional reach in the deck. I think it is completely mandatory. Two Blazing Minotaur. It's the best card you can play on turn 3 in most situations because it gives you such a high tempo. Then two Predator Ooze. This card is insane. I think that you definitely would prefer to run this, but you can run it without it. I think this just gives you so much advantage because this card allows you to keep attacking, and if you don't block, it generates infinite bodies on the board, and even if they do block and it creates a negative impact for your board, it is still creating generation of creatures for your boars. So I think this is a mandatory include in the deck. And then we have two Vicious Mongrel. I think this card is really nice to play on turn 4. It has very nice tempo, and having 5 defense is actually quite relevant because it can't lose to cards like the 3 mana red card that deals 4 damage. And then we play two Rampaging Boar. This card is okay. I think you could go 1 if you don't like it. And then, or I mean, I'm actually playing 1. My bad. I'm actually playing 1 of this. This card, I cut it down to 1 because I just did not find that it put enough impact on the board on turn 4. And as well, I also play two Hellrider. I think this is the best red card in any red deck. It's insane. The fact that on turn 5, if you have a full board, which in this deck, it is very likely for you to have a full board at that time, you can be representing 9 damage for 4 mana. So I think this card is insane. It closes out games, and a lot of people don't think that you have that additional reach. So I think it is quite mandatory in the deck. And then we play two Rampaging Notorog. This is actually better than the other card that buffs your boars because this has an immediate impact on the board. It gives your guy haste, and then inevitably trample. An interesting thing to know is that if you are in the mirror match, you do also give the other person's boars the effect. I don't know if that's a bug, but that has happened for me before. And then last card to run it out is Iliarch the Raised Boar. If you don't have this card, it's okay. But I would recommend this because it is the top end of our curve, and the artifact that it leaves behind does have a high impact when you have a full board. It allows you to get in for additional reach and close out games that you wouldn't need to. Okay, so that is all for the deck, and I'm going to take you guys through 3 matches, and I will get back to you whenever we get into those queues. Alright boys, we are back for our first match. We are going against Liliana, and we are going to be on the draw here. So with this hand, I think I would like to keep the Raging Goblin. I am going to keep the Sword Cannoneer to buff the Goblin. You could keep the Opening Salvo. I don't like to in this matchup because he can have a turn 1/1/1 mana Undying or revive itself, so it essentially doesn't trade for any value. But if he is playing the 1 mana 2/2 that whenever it's blocked, your opponent discards a spell, that card can trade nicely, so I think it's a toss-up to keep. Okay, so he does have the 1/1 Relentless here, so I think what I'm just going to do is go ahead and drop our Pouncing Lemur because I think it has the biggest impact on the board here. Now, I think I will go ahead and leave it at that. I'm not very much interested in trading my Raging Goblin in for him to get a Relentless proc and gain a life. So here, most likely he's going to trade with our Pouncing Lemur. So I think it's fine here to use our additional mana gem to go for 2 attackers this turn. So now neither one of the blockers will remove one of my creatures. So I think that's a very good addition to this board. I will say this matchup is a little bit tough. It kind of comes down to if he has the early tempo, then it can be hard to burst him out. But you want to play your cards as fast as possible in this matchup. And if you think you're having trouble in this matchup a lot, you could go for Molten Monastery as your land. I have been trying that personally, and it's come up to be very helpful. The problem is if you hit the proc on the first turn it's available, then it actually has a high chance to give you a negative impact because you can't play stuff like your Hell Rider to close out the game. So just keep that in mind. So his guy can no longer block here, so we can actually go for a huge tempo swing and use our Goblin Shortcutter to stop his flyer from blocking. We're representing 6 now. We play our Raging Goblin. We're now representing 8 damage that he can't block. So that is very strong. As you can see, he doesn't have the Infest online currently, as we know of, and a lot of people don't play that card. I think that card is insane. So this is working out very well for us. There's no reason to block any of his guys because you are always going to be ahead in the race just because of the tempo of your deck. So here, there's a couple different ways we can play this. Just know we are 1 creature away from getting our boar, and that is very important to note. So our boar is going to allow us to refill our board, so don't be afraid to attack even if your guy just gets traded into their blocker and he doesn't kill their guy, because you're going to refill the board anyway. So you kind of just have to push through, and a lot of times it may not look that well, but it's just kind of what you have to do, and it's not that negative of an impact in my opinion. So here, I'm gonna give my buff to my 2/1 just to incentivize him to block it because it does have the lowest HP out of any person on the board. If I want to be extremely aggressive here, I can go ahead and Raging Goblin over my 2/2. I think I'm gonna go ahead and do that just because he is at 15 and we want to put him on the clock. So potentially next turn, depending on the way his blockers sort out, our Hell Rider could give us confirmed lethal. And that's what's really nice about Hell Rider and why I took Molten Monastery out of the deck, is because we wouldn't be guaranteed to have that online next turn, which it's looking like unless he has a lot of removal, we are going to be able to get through for game with the Hell Rider. Excuse me. Dark Gladiator is a really nice card in this matchup, I will say. It trades very nicely into our board. So I think we're going to go ahead and just let this go through. There's no advantage to us blocking this here. When we play the Hell Rider, that's going to represent us 4 damage. He can block 2 things. So the lowest amount of damage that we can get through 4 is 4 here, so that's going to be exact lethal because we're doing 4 with our Hell Rider, which is insane because at turn 5 this is now representing 8 damage. Like I said, this card is very high impact, and a lot of times the other person isn't going to play around you having this because it's very hard to think about, like, well, what can you do to stop this, you know? Like, I mean, he had a card that granted him initiative and also removed one of my cards off the board. That's pretty much the best thing you can do in Liliana unless he has an Infest. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up with the dub, boys. All right, we are back into our second match, and we're going to be going against Vraska. We are on the draw once again. So here, the thing about this matchup is a lot of his cards trade a little bit over the head of our cards. So we kind of have to, once again, you know, hope that we can put on the early pressure and that he misses a couple early drops in order to push through for that damage. So here, I'm obviously keeping the Raging Goblin. I think it's fair to keep the opening salvo here. I mean, honestly, I think we can just keep everything. I think, you know, this is going to be our highest chance to push through for the most amount of damage. It's questionable to keep the opening salvo, but I think I'm going to go with it because I would rather destroy his cards during my turn than his turn and give him that initiative. So we're going to go ahead and put out our Raging Goblin, hit him for 2. Interestingly enough, he is playing the Deep Forest Arena. Not sure how I feel about that in this deck. I feel like Vraska is a little bit underpowered in comparison to some of the other people right now, but definitely not a bad choice. So here, he can add a Doom, which I don't feel like is very good against our deck, because all of our stuff really isn't planning on living more than one turn anyway. I think here we will probably go for the Sword Cannoneer. I think we go for the Sword Cannoneer. We buff our Raging Goblin, and we will use our Mana Gem to play the opening salvo. This is going to force him to trade with his Infectious Scorpion, and now we're going to have a 4/1 body on board next turn, and hopefully he uses some kind of removal to out this, which will give us initiative because we will control a creature, and it will come back to our turn. Hopefully he doesn't control a creature. Okay, so he has no out for this. That's really good. That means that we're probably going to Goblin Shortcutter this turn instead of Blazing Minotaur. Like, obviously he can do that. This is a great tempo for us, so that was an excellent draw. I'm going to go ahead and cancel out his boy, and then we're going to go ahead and get him for the 6. So, I mean, he cut off our guy. It's going to die, but, I mean, it's a 2/2. He could have had any card that would remove that. That's why I don't very much mind any type of Doom in this matchup. I feel like we're in a pretty good position because it seems like the build that he is going towards is more of a slower build. Excuse me, guys. I think here we probably can just trade this off. You know, he is going to get 2 cards, but card advantage doesn't really matter in this matchup. We are never going to have the card advantage. We just need to have tempo on the board and swing for as much as possible. So any way we can get him to spend this mana, I am completely fine with. He plays on the Baby Mammoth. That can be a little bit of a troublesome for us, but if we're able to flood the board early enough, we might be able to push through. That card is pretty good in this matchup, I will say. So, he did high roll. He pulled the Peer the Dreamer off of his 1 mana generator. So that is very nice for him. That may just win him the game, but we'll have to see. We have Iliarch, so he may push through for some secret damage that our opponent doesn't know about. We're going to go ahead and swing with the team. That's a reoccurring theme if you hadn't picked that up yet. You pretty much want to swing with the team every single time unless the other person is in the mirror match or they're also aggro. That's whenever it gets very much more skillful, I would say, because you have to think about your trades very carefully. Hopefully he doesn't top deck the Mammoth next turn. If he doesn't get it next turn, you know, he won't have a huge tempo advantage against us. What's nice is, you know, a lot of people, they don't know that you're... I mean, they do know, but they don't think about the fact that you're representing the Warboar, which is going to create another space on the board. So they won't block accordingly to that sometimes, especially if you're not really high. So it doesn't look like he drew the Mammoth, which is really nice for us. He did get the proc on his Deep Forest Arena, which is very nice for him. And he does have the synergy with his 1 mana generator to get 2. So hopefully that doesn't give him a removal. This is just some insane tempo. I mean, the fact that he high rolled off of the 1 mana generator is pretty insane. I mean, this is a legendary. It's not like he has a high chance to get that, so they're not always going to have that. Here, you know, it is arguable that we could trade our Goblin Shortcutter here. You know, I don't mind doing that because this is never trading into his Soul of the Wood anyway. It is pretty insane that he has a ward on his Soul of the Wood, I will say. So this is a great top deck for us. It is a great mana sink, so we can kill his Mammoth. We're not going to get in for as much damage as I would like, but it is very nice. So personally, I think we're just going to trade off our boar into his Mammoth. A lot of people will very much easily trade your boar over anything else, so... You know, it doesn't really matter. If I would have buffed this guy, he's probably going to still trade the boar. I don't know why, but people just think, like, you have a lot of buffs, and I feel like that has to do with, like, the game being new and people not knowing the matchup as well. So we're getting him pretty low here. If he isn't able to kill this during his turn, we have a good chance of being able to rush him out with our Raise War. But if he is able to kill this during his turn, then we may not have such a good chance because he's restoring his 6 health, and I don't know that we have the advantage to push through here. Yeah, he goes ahead and draws the Mammoth there, and that's just very strong. So in this situation, it's like, you know, I can attack with both of these. He's going to trade with his Soul of the Wood. He's going to trade with his Mammoth. We're going to gain nothing, so we might as well just pass in case maybe we draw a Hell Rider or something, which could push through for 4 more. This is actually very strong in this matchup. I don't know if it's necessarily like the best to play in this deck, but it is very nice against us. So if you play this person, that is something to think about. This is definitely one of the tougher matches, so I'm not expecting to win this, but, you know, it is possible. We had a chance. He had a little bit of RNG go in his favor, and the thing about our deck is it has a lot less RNG than other decks, so that is a very nice aspect of the deck, because some decks, you know, like you play like Rawl, he's basically Casino Mage, man, you know, like, sometimes there's just nothing you can do. He can just discover so many spells that he just gains so much advantage, and that's kind of what this guy did, where he discovered the Legendary and his Mammoth on the following turn and then gave this ward. So I mean, a lot of things had to go right for him to win this match, and you can see how close we got his HP total. It's 0, so it's definitely not unwinnable, but he is favored on him for sure. If you've gotten this far in the video, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up on the video and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. I'm going to be coming out with more content in the future for sure for this, and if you have any deck requests, definitely do so. I am streaming this game most mornings at beatsbyashofficial.twitch.tv, so if you're interested in catching me on a stream, we can talk about decks. I have a Discord. The link to my Discord will be in the description of this video, so if you're interested in that, go ahead and check me out, and I will see you when we get back in the 3rd game. Alright boys, and we are back for the 3rd and final game. If you made it this far in the video, I greatly appreciate it, and we're going to get into this one. This is the first time we're playing first. I just wanted to make note of that because aggro decks typically have a stronger advantage going first in that place anyway. So here, I don't really feel like keeping any of these. It is reasonable to keep the Predator Ooze, but I feel like in this matchup, we just want to rush him down as fast as possible, and there's a decent chance that his cards have no effect on us anyway. In this matchup, it's quite horrible for him because his stacks take so long to have an effect on our deck. We also have no cards that allow us to draw cards, and we don't have any way to really bounce cards back to his hand, so we don't really play into his passive, such as people like Jace and or Rawl do. So I think we're looking pretty good in this one, man. You know, going first is a huge upside in this matchup for sure. So he does have the turn 1 Rune Shell Crab, which is extremely strong versus any aggro / mid-range deck. You know, I'm tempted to hit here. It's really up to you whether you think you should attack into the Rune Shell Crab or you should pass, because you could draw a Trumpet Blast, which could allow you to trade very well into the board next turn, or if you just attack with this turn and you don't draw anything next turn that's playable, then you can still attack with your 1/1s. Hopefully he'll pick up a 2-for-1, which like I said, when they put up blockers, you just have to attack with everything you can and hope that you can push through, because there's not much removal in this deck. You know, we have a couple fight cards, but other than that, we don't really have a good way to clear the board if he puts up too many bodies early game. So, yeah, like I said, there's no way for us to go ahead and play anything this turn. We're actually just in such a terrible situation, but we can at least trade with this Rune Crab if he blocks it. I'm not sure if he will. Okay, yeah, so he's not going to accept the trade. It's kind of irritating for us. We're kind of in a terrible position. I think we have 2, 4, 6. So yeah, we have 8, 8, 4, and 5 cost cards on our deck, and we drew 50% of them. So I mean, very unlucky, but what can you do? So I'm tempted to take out this card entirely. I don't feel like it adds a lot of initiative in the deck. We draw another 4 cost card. So not very good for us, but this does put our board online, so that is something. We are setting up for a big push with our Hell Rider. I will say that double Hell Rider can at times feel very toxic, so maybe if he runs out of gas, that'll be very nice. I would say that his hand played very well into ours. He had a lot of early game tempo, which you don't necessarily see all the time in this matchup. You know, he has a lot of cards that he can use that just don't put anything on the board, but generate him advantage through creating him stacks. And he drew all of his early drops to trade with our board, and then we missed a turn 4 or turn 3 drop. So what can you do, man? So I'm not really going to trade with either of these because I want our Hell Rider to have additional value. We're kind of in a terrible spot. He has so much tempo and so much card advantage that I'm not sure we'll be able to come back, but I will try my best for you guys. Trouble Blast seems like it's going to be a little bit too late. I'm not sure if we can pull this one out, guys, but you know, it's not the worst, not unwinnable. I think what we're going to do here is go ahead and put out our Goblin so we can generate 2 bodies. Hopefully he will trade his 2/1 and his 2/2 to leave him 1 remaining creature on the board. And then next turn, if he doesn't put anything too big on the board, maybe we can push through for some damage. But it's looking like he's setting up a pretty big wall, guys. So, I mean, he kind of had a bland turn there. We actually have a chance to win now, I would say. Our Hell Rider doesn't trade equally with either of his guys, so he'll have to use a removal in hand, and we are getting through for the 1 damage. Next turn, if we draw a small drop, and like if we draw a Bouncing Lemur or a Raging Goblin for our Hell Rider, that would be very nice. Ooh. Very unfortunate for us. He has the double removal spell. That card is very strong against us. So just going to go ahead and put Doom on our Hell Rider. I mean, it's no big deal. It's a 1/1. Like I said, Doom has very little effect against this matchup. So here, I think I'm just going to play Iliarg. It's going to get us through for the most damage, and we're still going to be able to play our Boar after. So at least our Hell Rider did 2 damage. It did 1 damage last turn, so it got through for 3 damage for 5 mana, and it caused him to use 2 cards. So, I mean, still, the card is insane value, man. He's probably not going to block this because his guy only has 1 HP and I have Trample, so it's no big deal there. Hopefully this requires a large mana sink from him and we can get through with our second Hell Rider. He probably won't be able to play around that. It's kind of insane to show you that we're still in this matchup. Okay, so he had to use 4 mana on that. It's very good for us. And then he's going to use his Agony to do the rest there. So now we're in a decent situation. We are at 8, so if we get unlucky on our Ashiok hits, it is going to be very bad for us. Okay, so we draw none. That was amazing. So now what we can do here is we are going to Hell Rider for 5, and then I will Raging Goblin, play my, I'm going to hold my Pouncing Lemur. So our artifact gives us Trample, which is going to allow us to push through for some additional damage. So that's very nice for us. I'm going to go ahead and put that on our Hell Rider, maybe force him to do an unfavorable block. This just shows you guys, you know, how unfavorable this matchup is for him. The fact that, you know, we were stuck, we missed multiple drops in multiple situations, and somehow we're still in a position where we could win, you know. It's not the best for us, but, you know, we're still alive. He's at 4, we're at 8. If we draw something with haste, we could push through. That's the thing about Rampaging Boar, is it doesn't give you any initial value. If we had the Boar guy who gave haste, then next turn we will fulfill our condition on our passive, and we would be in a position to lethal for sure. He has used 2 premium removals in this matchup, so he had to use the Shell Game on our our dude, which is actually fine because we have a Trumpet Blast, which was actually the only removal that he could have had for us. So that was really good for us. So we're at 9 mana. Usually you don't get to 9 mana, which is actually fucking crazy, bro. So we're going to Rampaging Boar here. We can actually just play every card in our hand, so I'm not even going to take you through that. Spam Arbor. Play our Trumpet Blast, insane value. Maybe this randomly pushes through for lethal, I'm not sure. So if we do it on this, creates an unfavorable trade for him, but we have our opening salvo either way, so I don't think it matters. If he blocks this first, I think we get through for our trample damage, and that's lethal. But I'm unsure how that works, so we'll see. Okay, yeah, so we actually just get through with our trample. So opening salvo was insane there, man. So that's all 3 games for you guys. Kind of got a gist of how this character plays and what the play style of the deck is. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much. I really appreciate the support, and if you want to continue seeing content like this, let me know. I'm down to make videos for any type of deck that you guys are interested in. I love helping other people, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.